Welcome, I'm Martha Pusey, I'm head of Sage House, and today we're going to be talking about if you're in a good place when you die. And joining me today is Ruth Frampton. Hi Ruth, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Really good, thank you. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
So, as you know, my name's Ruth and I work for Co-op Funeral Care, and I'm one of the funeral directors that work here. So our job primarily is at the funeral where we're the custodial of the deceased. So we are there to look after the deceased and to hand over their next care to either the crematorium or the grave at the burial site. We also get involved in arranging the funeral as well. So we will meet the families, we will discuss their needs and their wishes, and we will endeavour to try and make them happen. Obviously, there's some things that we have to gain permission, and sometimes we can't always do everything that the families desire, but we'll try our hardest to do what we can.
So, first question off the bat, why funeral care? What made you choose funeral care as a career?
As a young lady in college, we were asked to look at our own work experience. So I went along to the local funeral parlour and I wanted to see what happened after death. I wasn't morbid or anything like that. I just wanted to see what happened. So they were brilliant and they allowed me to work there for 2 weeks, and I followed the team out the back with the deceased, picking them up from hospital with the person, going out on funerals, and the respect that they showed the deceased was second to none. And it was amazing to see, amazing the process, speaking to the families and going through that. So after that work experience, I went and did a completely different career. I went into care. And as most of us at a certain time in our life, we kind of sit back and go, actually, what do I want to do next? And I remembered how respectful everyone was in the care trade, you know, in the deceased trade. So I then decided I'd like to try and get a job, and I was very lucky and successful. And yeah, so 3 years later, I've managed to progress through the service, and now I'm a funeral director, yeah.
Some real parallels with care and, sort of caring for people who are alive and caring for people who are dead. So, yeah.
Yeah, and definitely about the respect and trying to support people as much as possible as well.
Yeah.
As you say, with
combination or a good transition into a position.
Yeah, it's helped a lot, and speaking to people at really horrible times for them as well. Because obviously in care as well, it's not always sweetness and light. You know, you do have to do some of the stuff that you don't always do in every day. So yes, I think that's definitely helped. Yeah.
I imagine as well, sort of having those conversations about dying, that if you've worked in care, you're kind of used to those conversations already. So do you find then that people are kind of planning their funerals now, or do you tend to find that you're still talking more to family members and planning the funerals with the family members?
There's a real mixture. There are some that have already planned their funerals and the family know exactly what they want. The person's taken out a funeral plan, so some of the decisions have been made for them. So they know about the coffin, the cars, etc. And that really helps families if they do have an idea of what that person wants. Those families that haven't pre-organised it, then it is harder because they don't know possibly the music the person liked or loved. They don't know exactly what they would have wanted. In the Victorian ages, of course, it was totally different. You know, the conversations about funerals were, this is what happened. The person will come home and lay at home, you know, open coffin. This is what happens. As the eras have gone on, we've kind of become, as everyone else calls us, the British, stiff-lipped. And we don't really discuss those kind of things that are awkward conversations. So now we do find a bit of a mixture, really. As I said, you know, some people have already planned it, which is great. Some people may have had a conversation, or some people might put their wishes in the wills. Some people haven't discussed it at all. We do encourage, if possible, people to have that conversation, because then you can follow that person's wishes and you know exactly what they want, and there's less guessing, which then makes that family a lot happier because they know they're giving that person what they actually wanted for their funeral. So a bit of a mixture, really.
And, you know, I guess if you put it into context with, the death of Prince Philip, and him having designed his own Land Rover, had that forethought about what he wants. And, you know, maybe a few more of us can take a bit of inspiration from, you know, the planning of, you know, how you want to be brought into, you know, your coffin born into the church or to the crematorium, I guess. It's and
I think that kind of links into about the ethics at the moment for everything about making sure you get what you want, planning a good death. You know, hopefully you're pain free when the time comes. You're in an environment that you want to be in, so at home, in a hospice or something like that. Because I know he wanted to come home for the end of life care, didn't he? Because that's what he requested.
Yeah.
And they were able to support that, as like anyone else can be supported for that to happen as well. You know, it's not just royalty. Anyone can pass away at home now and have that support in place to make that death as nice as possible for the person and for the family to be able to support that person in achieving that as well.
Yeah.
And it's just brought home again, isn't it, that there is groups and the societies and the Macmillan nurses, which are absolutely brilliant, hospice nurses, you know, the district nurses, they're all there to help support that as well. It's not just about, you know, the general day-to-day stuff. They are there as well to support that person to pass away where they want, how they want
as well. So you were saying about, you know, in the Victorian era, it was one of my earliest memories of, you know, my nan or my great nan laying in her coffin, in an open coffin, and being taken in and just seeing her face surrounded by all this lace. And it's amazing how things have changed. And I'm not that old.
Yeah. No, and how suddenly we have gone, oh no, we don't want that anymore. Different cultures as well.
Yeah.
So down here, people's perceptions are that we carry the coffins in. In Scotland, if you carry the coffin in, people don't always like that. They prefer it on the wheels. So the wheels will then take their loved one in, but it also gives the opportunity then for anyone to help bring their loved one into the chapel. It's not just about the perception of having a male or female coffin, you know, carrying the coffin in. Children might be able to help them, grandchildren, if they've got that special bond. So again, it's culturally seeing that they can change and can mix. It doesn't matter what happens in Scotland, doesn't happen down here, in Ireland, whatever. It's about making sure the family get what's right for them and being able to say goodbye to their loved one in the way that they want to.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So what do you think are your perhaps 2 or 3 most unique funerals that you've had to plan with a family?
When talking to the family, it could be something as simple for them. I had once a guitar next to the coffin and a picture of the deceased because he was a musician. And so that was lovely as well because he was able to personalise it for the family. They know that's what, remembering what they of that person. There is a double-decker red bus in London that we could hire out as well. And that was a really lovely thing to do as well. So the deceased was resting on the lower deck, and all the mourners could go at the top. So everyone could go to the service together. And when I was talking to the company who you know, rented it out, they were happy for the dog to go on. They were happy for the party kind of celebration of life almost on that bus. So they didn't want it just to be that's it. They wanted the family almost to enjoy that kind of last journey with their loved one and have fun with it as well. So that was really lovely that they were so open to different things that we were asking for them as well from the families. That was brilliant.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really lovely. And even down to a different kind of hat, different ties, dressing up. So we had one family, the person loved superheroes. So the gents went in onesies of superheroes. So it's just personalising that funeral to how that family want. We normally say if it's legal, then we will do it. If it's not legal, then obviously we'll have to decline. But yeah, we try and personalise it as much as possible for that family to ensure they say goodbye in the way they wish to.
When it comes to afterlife care, so caring for the deceased, what is the kind of process and how much do you tell the family about what happens?
At the Co-op, one of their things is that we are transparent with our clients, from talking about bringing a loved one into our care to the processes and costs. Everything is transparent and open. So depending if the person passed away from her at home or in hospital, We'll discuss what happens. So we would go and bring the loved one into our care. When the team attends a home address, they will talk through where their loved one's going. So they know exactly where they're resting and what will happen kind of thing then, and about the funeral arranger then contacting them. We are open with them. A lot of people are surprised that every funeral home has some kind of area, some kind of chilled area that we can keep deceased there on the premises. And people are quite surprised about that. But every home has one. And that's really important to families to know exactly where their loved one is and what actually happens. If someone's embalmed, then because of the processes with embalming and the chemicals used, they have to go to one of our different care centres. And again, we're open about that and the process that happens then as well, because the equipment that the embalmers wear to make sure that they're as safe as possible. If someone would like their loved one dressed, we encourage them to bring their clothing in, and our team will then dress that person and complete what we call first officers, which again, that's about making sure your deceased is, if the hair wash it needs, if there's any makeup that would like to be applied, making sure the person is washed. So you know your loved one is looked after in the best way possible. And we as arrangers and funeral directors support our team to do that as well, to make sure. Depending on the clients that we are talking to, we will choose our terminology accordingly to that person as well. I use an awful lot of Mother Nature and the job that she does, because we see Mother Nature around us all the time. We know her job is different to everything that they need to do. And so we use those kind of terminologies a lot. And as you say before, no acronyms, no kind of abbreviations, and making sure that we are as open as possible with that person's and with those families so that they know exactly what's happening at all times.
It's a real privileged place to be in, isn't it? To
100%.
care for someone.
Yeah. And especially when we're doing the funeral arrangements and we ask to know a little bit about that person, because what we do is pause before every funeral. We'll just read that bit of information, and it just reminds us that this is someone's loved one. We're saying goodbye to them today, and we're taking them on their final journey, and how much of a privilege it is. And as the staff here, there's conversations and memories and moments in that person's life that possibly other family members didn't know about, because we talk about things to different people at different times. And so we're in a really privileged place because we hear all those stories, all those memories that would be forgotten sometimes. So we can be, we can be part of that journey with that family, and it's a very privileged place to be, 100%.
I think that's one thing I'm always very, sometimes a bit sad about when I attend somebody's funeral, that I hear things, I think, if only I'd known that when that person was alive and you could have chatted about it with them. So for you to be able to hear those stories, it must be so powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing. And especially as, like, someone has an order service, we can tailor-make that stationery to that person. So if they've served on a certain ship in the war, we can ask our stationers to either try and find a picture of that ship, which is possible, or we find another ship that's very, very close to it. So again, it's just all these bits of information. We can help them personalise that funeral to say goodbye to their loved one in the best way possible.
Fantastic. You do an amazing job, Ruth. And
thank you.
And all other funeral directors as well.
Yeah,
not just
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to say and acknowledge that through COVID that things have been particularly different, to say, well done to you, to all funeral directors, because, we talked about our NHS superheroes who are superheroes, and, I acknowledge that as well, but just 100%. As much, the hard work that you've all done through this time.
And we found it very hard because we've had to say no to family members on stuff that before COVID would never be a no, and have to restrict them because of the regulations that are in place. So I think, like you say, for every funeral director, even shop assistants, everyone, it's been such a hard time.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're coming out of that now. Yeah. And things will change slowly back to how they were